Fourth civilization governments. Fourth civilization governments, the ancient teachings of the light of intelligence and the religions.
Okay.
At all times, and in every one of the four ages of any cycle, the people were of four classes: the hard workers, the traders, thinkers, and those who had some knowledge. These distinctions were outstanding at periods of the highest development and obscured in periods of low development.
Correct.
So the forms of the relation between these four classes have changed many times. In agriculture periods, the hard workers acted as slaves or as hired laborers or as small landowners working for themselves, or they received a part of the produce or other remuneration as pay from greater landholders, or they worked in large family communities. In industrial periods, they worked as slaves or as hired men, owned small manufacturing plants in their houses, or worked together in larger shops or in communities. It was so among the people of an earth age as well as among those of the other ages. One class was the hard workers or muscle workers or body workers. The other three classes depend on them, but the body workers in turn depended on the other classes.
Okay.
The second class, that of the traders. They traded products or for a medium of exchange, metals, animals, or slaves. Sometimes they dominated for a while, as they do today, when large landholders and manufacturers, politicians, lawyers, and often doctors belong to this class. See, he put all the politicians, lawyers, doctors, they come into this category, traders. The third class was that of the thinkers, those who had a profession supplying information and service to traders and workers. They were teachers, healers, warriors, builders, or navigators on land, on water, or in the air. Fourth class were the knowers among men, those who had a sense knowledge available from the past of the forces of nature, which the third class only applied to
Practical.
lands, and who had some knowledge of the doer and the triune self and of their relation to the light of intelligence. These are like rishis.
Correct.
And all classes lived in a rude fashion. At others, they lived in simple comfort with art and learning widely diffused. Okay, at times all classes lived in a rude fashion. At others, they lived in a simple comfort with art and learning widely diffused. At other times, there was a great disparity in the standards of living, and poverty, discomfort, and disease of the masses were in contrast to the wealth and luxury of a few. Usually, the four classes were mixed, but sometimes their distinctions were rigidly observed.
Okay.
The governments were phases of rulership by knowledge, by learning, by traders, and by the many. The forms in which the phases actually appeared were hierarchies, with a chief as the top of a pyramid of the lesser officials. Whether the knowledge ruled or learning, or whether traders or the many were in power, actually one person was the ruler, with assistants, counselors, and numbers of servitors numbers of servitors decreasing in authority and importance. Sometimes the head was elected by his own class or by all classes. Sometimes he usurped or inherited his position. Those under him would usually draw power, property, and privileges to themselves at the expense of those who were not of the class in power at that time, like kingdom, king, queen.
King, queen are rulers, and then the dynasty, everything.
Correct. All this was tried over and over again. The most successful governments where the greatest well-being and happiness prevailed among the greatest number were those in times when the class that had knowledge was in power. Knowledge was what power. Okay. The least successful, those where the greatest confusion, want, and unhappiness prevailed, where were the governments by the many. So first one is, successful government when the knowledge is power. The other one is unhappiness, confusion prevailed when the governments were working for only. The least successful, those were where the greatest confusion, want, and unhappiness prevailed, were the governments by the many. Corruption and trading in the general interest of private ends existed as much when the many ruled as when the traders themselves were in power. The curse of government by the masses has been ignorance, indifference.
This we are able to observe currently in a few of the
Correct.
countries.
Yes. Ignorance, indifference, unbridled passion, and selfishness. Because the government rulers were like this. The traders, when they ruled, modified these inherent properties by a thought of regulation, order, and business. But the curse was that the practice of corruption, hypocrisy, and trading in public affairs still existed in the general order, which they outwardly maintained. When the learned were in power as warriors, priests, or the cultured, the fundamental qualities which were unrestrained when the many were in power and only modified superficially when the traders ruled, were often influenced by considerations of integrity, honor, and nobility. When those ruled who had knowledge, the pyramid of the public servants was free from greed, lust, cruelty, and brought justice, simplicity, honesty, and consideration for others with it. But this was rare and only came at the climax of an age, though it sometimes lasted for a long period. The moral qualities of humanity have been very much the same in every age for long periods. What had varied is the openness with which they have appeared. Responsibility and freedom from from sexual immorality, from drunkenness, and from dishonesty have been the mark in all ages of those who had knowledge.
Correct.
The other classes have been governed by their passions, while the learned and cultured have often been restrained by pride, honor, and position. The traders have been restrained by fear of the law and the laws of the trade, and the fourth class has been restrained by the not seeing or neglecting to take advantage of opportunities and by fear. So these, they were succumbed to these. The general aspect of morality.
Majority of it is fear in one form or the other.
Correct. The general aspect of the morality of the ages is modified by many exceptions. Exceptional persons are such because they do not really belong to the class of which they for the time seem to form part. In each human is a combination of all classes. Everyone is a worker, a trader, has a learning, and has knowledge in some degrees. His morality is regulated by the predominance in him of one of the four. He is the one of the exceptions when the predominance in him of one of the four gives him a moral standard differing from that of the class to which he apparently belongs. So he is saying we have all the four classes in us, in every human being. Depending upon which one it dominates, we project that. During the fourth civilization, numerous and widely divergent religions have come into existence. They have risen and have fallen into Usitude. They have fallen into, Religions represents the ties that hold the doer to nature from which it came and the pull that nature has on the doer's feelings, emotions, and desires through the four senses. Yeah. So,
Religions represent the ties that hold the doer to nature from which it came and the pull that nature has on the doer's feelings, emotions, and desires through the four senses. Okay. Take it.
so how he reacts to the
Correct.
senses. These senses are the messengers and the servants of nature. The ties last until the doer learns that it is not a part of nature, not those senses, and that it is independent of nature and the senses. These ties are allowed by the intelligence and triune selves in charge of humanity for the purpose of training it. The religions of some sort are necessary in so far as they are these ties and advantageous in so far as they tend to advance the doers which are tied. The light of intelligence is loaned through the doers to the god or gods to which the thoughts and desires of the human beings go out in worship. So whatever we loan the intelligence, through us it goes to the deities or gods.
Because
Apparent,
we are the ones who created the God, so we are the ones who give it the power. Yeah.
the apparent intelligence of the gods of religions is due to the light of intelligences which they permit to enlighten the gods and the theology of the religions. So the apparent intelligence of the gods of religions is due to the light of intelligences which they permit to enlighten the gods and the theology of the religions.
Yeah. Who is they here?
We, human being, we are permitting.
The doers.
Doers, yeah. The more important religious movements were started by wise men, a name here used for advanced doers living for a special purpose in human bodies and by saviors of a tribe, of a people, or of the world. The fact of the appearance of new religions from time to time is patent, though the personalities that started the movements as Osiris, Moses, and Jesus are legendary even in historical times. In the present Earth age, a new one appears about every 2100 years. So, according to him, every 2100 years, the age changes. A new age appears. The religions of the past, of which no known record remains, often reappeared in cyclic order. This is what Yuga. He is talking about the Yugas. Some religions were unlike anything that is called a religion today. Some religions were unlike anything that is called a religion today. Sometimes they were identified with science. They were logical and orderly. That is like he's talking about Theosophical Society. Their theology met demands of reason. It was so in the periods when the worldly governments were in the hands of those who had self-knowledge. And at those times, there was a chasm between thinking and religion. The theologies were given out as infallible and unchangeable. Usually, they maintained their hold on the people by rites and spectacles symbolic of events in nature or of events after death, since these appeal to the feelings and emotions. The theologies promised their votaries, the theologies promised their votaries rewards which they desired and threatened punishments which they feared. So eventually it started declining like this. They started, whoever want to vote, they are yes, they say we will give rewards, whatever they desired, and threatened punishments if they feared. The stories of what the gods went through, their sufferings and adventures appeal to the sympathy and sentiments of the worshippers. Martyrdom was important in these theologies. Impressive angels, demons, and devils existed in hierarchies. All was arranged so as to appeal to sympathy, fear, and exception of reward. Okay, so we arranged.
So expectation of reward. No, not exception. Expectation of reward.
Yeah. All was arranged so as to appeal to sympathy, fear, and expectation or reward. Correct. A moral code was always injected into the mass of often incongruous, fortuitous, and illogical stories.
Yeah.
Intelligences and triumphs in charge of humanity saw to that. Saviors from time to time gave out teachings concerning the nature of the doer and its destiny, and when the teachings were forgotten or distorted, enlightened reformers sought to be re-establish them. The life of the doer after death and its return to earth in a new human body were often revealed and as often forgotten or distorted. The true teachings were obscured, and ignorance or fanatistic beliefs prevailed, and fanatism. Today, there is in the East a remnant of the great teachings of the light of the intelligence going into nature and of its reclamation, hidden under the theology about Purusha and Prakriti and Atma in its various phases. The conscious light, once known to ancient Hindus as the ancient wisdom, has in the course of time been shrouded in myth and mystery and is lost in their sacred books. So, what he is saying is initially there is the conscious light known to ancient Hindus as the ancient wisdom, but over that course of time, it is all shrouded in the myth and mystery.
Right.
In that little book of Bhagavad Gita, the light can be found by one who is able to extract the essential teaching of Krishna to Arjuna from the mass of the other doctrine. One's conscious self in the body is Arjuna. Krishna is the thinker and knower of one's triune self who reveals itself to its conscious doer in the body when one is ready and prepared to receive the teaching. So basically, the doer is Arjuna, thinker and knower is a Krishna.
Correct. The doer in the body. Doer in the body. The consciousness in the body.
Yes. Yes. Atma. Atma Paramatma. In the West, similar teachings are obscured by an elusive and improbable theology with a strange etymology of original sin and Christology, which is based on martyrology, as in nature worship, instead of the teachings of the sublime destiny of the doer. Every teaching requires a body of men to bring it and keep it before the people and to lead in religious observances. Okay, all religions,
this is the structure basically is saying. Every teaching, the structure is built around modeling of a human being.
A body of men is a group of men to bring it and keep it before the people and lead religious. That is like it was one leader for having yeah. All religions therefore had priests, but not all priests were true to their trust. Seldom, except at the culmination of a cycle, did those who had knowledge function as priest. So whoever had the highest knowledge, they functioned as priest. Usually, not even the third class, those who had learning, but the class of traders furnished the priest of the temples. So people, that is like kings giving, building temples. Some had much learning, but their mental set was that of the traders. So some means here the priest or people?
No, the set of people.
Set of people, okay. Offices, precedence, privileges, and tribute were exacted by them as far as possible. They molded a theology that supported their claims to be the chosen and to the ensuing authority. They asserted that they had the same power over the doers of the people after the death that they exercised over their lives. The farther they got from the true teachings, the more they fortified themselves by the ignorance, bigotry, and fanatism which they maintained around them and the fear they bred. Fanaticism. As teachers, priests are entitled to a proper place so as to exercise their high office with dignity. But their power should come from the love and affection of the people whom they teach, console, and encourage, and the respect which is due to a noble life.
Hmm.
The worldly power of the priests, an expression of their inner nature as traders, finally brought corruption and downfall to every religion which served them. So this is what happened. This is how it happened over the ages. Some of the religions of the past were great in the clarity, singleness, and power of their teachings. So some, yeah, they had a great clarity and the power of, they have the in their teachings. They accounted for many of the beings and forces in nature and gave to those who followed them power over elemental beings, who followed the power over elemental beings. The festivals and rites had to do with the deeper meanings of the seasons and the of life. So
Hmm.
they gave more importance to the nature.
Yeah. So basically, he's explaining the societies and their functioning in those days.
Like our Sankranti, literally,
Hmm.
that is how, yeah. Their influence was widespread and affected all classes of the people. They
Hmm.
were religions, religions breeding joy, enthusiasm, self-restraint. All people took the teachings gladly into their lives.
Hmm.
Such times happened only when the government was in the hands of those who had the knowledge. From such heights, the religions fell, gradually or suddenly, when the governments passed to the traders. The truths formerly revealed were restated as absurdities dressed in dressed in fantastic garb. So they put nice color, yeah, for the
Make it
people to attract.
attractive. Make it attractive.
Attractive. Pomp, long ritual plays, mystic ceremonies, miraculous stories, varied with dances and humans and animal sacrifices.
Hmm.
The interminglable and preposterous pantheon and mythology was their theology.
Hmm.
The people in their ignorance accepted readily absurd stories. The most miraculous and incomprehensible became the most important. Ignorance, fanaticism, and cruelty were universal, while the revenues of the priest increased and their authority was supreme. Lavishness, no, okay, lavishness
No,
and
no, no.
sexual practice.
Lasciviousness and sexual practices.
Lascivious, what is this? Lascivious,
No,
lasciviousness.
lasciviousness is more to do with seducing and all that.
Oh, okay, sexual power. Okay. And sexual practices are presented and accepted as the worship of many gods or of the supreme god.
Hmm.
See, this is how they doomed the people into.
Devadasis. No, no. That is basically
Oh,
the Devadasis and all
oh,
that. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, in the courts of the kings and yes, rottenness of religions, loss of morality, corruption in government, oppression of the weak, and vast power of the great usually came together and led to the disappearance of the religion.
Hmm.
Wars have recurred. Wars have recurred through all the ages. Between the hostilities came periods of rest. The causes were the desires of persons, classes, and people for food, comfort, and power, and the feelings of envy, hate, which started from these desires. Wars were conducted with whatever
See,
means.
currently with the Pakistan and India and other countries joining and favoring and all, we see this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Desires, persons, classes, yes. Wars were conducted with whatever means were at hand.
So
In
there is
crude ages,
water war, control, transport war. There are so many.
yes, wars were conducted with whatever means were at hand. In crude gauges, tooth and nail and stones and clubs were used. When the people had machines for war, these were employed. When they commanded nature forces and elemental beings, they made use of those. ఇలాగే మనం భారత యుద్ధం వాళ్ళకి
Yeah, yeah.
అస్త్రాలు in hand-to-hand fights, individuals were wounded or killed one at a time. In the mechanical and scientific periods, thousands of enemies were maimed or destroyed at once. And in the most advanced stages, when some persons could use elemental forces, it was possible for them to annihilate, and they did annihilate whole armies and people. Oh, whole armies were annihilated. Yeah. Those who directed the elemental forces were met by enemies who used the same or opposing forces. So between these individuals, it was a question of thrust and parry with force against force until the operators on one side were overcome. These are like even wars we see in the Mahabharata and yeah. They might be overcome by the force they themselves exerted, which recoiled on them when they parried, or they might succumb to the force they did not parry. What is parry? What
Parry means,
PARRY?
no. Parry means, see, in sword fighting, right? When you block with the sword, it is parry.
Oh.
See, you try to strike, I use my sword and block your move.
To block the other one's weapon.
Yeah.
When those who directed the force had so been killed, a whole army or people could be destroyed or enslaved. Yeah, using the power, they can block the other enemy's weapon. The behavior of the people, which resulted periodically in small or great wars and revolutions and other general calamities and consequent disturbances, brought with it diseases. So because of all this, the diseases also, they came. The diseases were exteriorizations of the thinking as much as were the other calamities. From the general afflictions, many escaped, but very few remained free from disease. Like our COVID.
Yeah.
There were times when many, in fact, most of the people were free from the disease. These were the periods of simple savagery, or those when the class that had knowledge ruled completely and there was a general state of comfort, simplicity, and joy in work. So when the people with the knowledge, when they ruled, there was comfort, simplicity, and joy in work.
Because, I mean, life is
Otherwise,
more organized.
More organized, correct. Otherwise, there has always been more or less ailment of the body. In different periods, the prevailing diseases differed because the thoughts differed. Sometimes single persons were affected, sometimes epidemics came. There were skin diseases where the skin was eaten away and left running sores, beginning in patches and spreading till there was not enough whole skin for breathing. Oh my God. In another kind, the skin puffed in places, grew like cauliflower, became discolored, and emitted a stench. It ate through the skull and continued until the bone was so eaten away that the brain was exposed and death followed. Oh my God. Diseases of the sense organs ate away the eye or inner ear at the root of the tongue.
Those are these biological chemical warfares like sarin or those gases used in First World War and Second World War.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Chemical gases.
Yes.
Gases. My God. Okay, diseases of the sense organs ate away the eye or inner ear or the root of the tongue. Diseases severed the attachments that held the joints so that the fingers, toes, and sometimes the lower leg dropped off. Oh my God. There were diseases of the...
No, some of it is leprosy and all that.
There were diseases of the inner organs which stopped their functions. Some diseases caused no pain but disability. Some caused an intense pain and terror. There were infections infectious sexual diseases in addition to those of today.
Mm.
One of them caused loss of sight, hearing, or speech without any affection of their organs.
Mm.
Another caused a completely loss of feeling. Another, an enlargement of the male or female organs or a shriveling that made them useless. List item. Most of these diseases have never been cured. Attempts to cure by surgery, by medicine, by charms, incantations, prayers, dances, mental healing, and such methods as are used today have not effected a real cure. At the proper time, the disease returns in one form or another. At times, the manifestations of disease increased until people were decimated, weakened, and disappeared. So basically, that is how the ruining of the people occurred in different diseases. Doers not on earth came from a prior earth age. Doers now on earth came from a prior earth age. So before us, now whoever is existing, they came from another prior earth age. The doers now on earth came from a prior earth age. Failure of these doers to improve, because of the failure of the doers to improve. The story of feeling and desire, the spell of the
These are all
sexes,
the categories that is going to cover in this.
the purpose of re-existences. Doers now on earth, and those of whom tradition and history tell, were embodied in some of the people of these past ages. The doers that appeared in the past ages continue to re-exist, though not all of them can be here today. The leading doers in the past may not be here now. The leading doers meet already ascended masters,
Yeah.
like Mayans. The majority of the doers known of in historical times belong to an earth age. So majority of the doers known of in historical times belong to an earth age.
Of in historical time belong to earth age.
Correct. Doers known of in historical times. Yeah. Basically, whoever is ascended or popular or familiar.
Correct.
This started after the obliteration of people of a former cycle of 4 ages. There are now also many who belong to water, air, and fire peoples. Still they are existing.
Yeah.
But they were not the ones who made those ages great. They were then position like that of the people today who, while they receive telegraphic and wireless communications and ride in electric cars, know little about electricity. They receive telegraphic wireless communication and ride electric cars, know little about electricity. It is likely that the few men who have changed conditions on the earth in the last 150 years by their inventions and applications of the sciences belong to the water, air, and fire people, but they played a part more prominent than the mere populace, and some of them probably helped to develop the great achievements. But they are inventors and helped people to,
Correct. And then they come back to continue what they have done.
So they belong to water, air, and fire age people.
Correct.
However, some here today who are under a cloud were yet in the past among the markers of the great civilizations of the earth.
Makers of the great. No, they were those who are there today. They were those inventors and all those people. That's what he's repeating.
However, some here today who are under a cloud were yet in the past among the makers of the great civilizations of the earth, water. Yeah, basically, we are from forefathers. They are still existing.
He is talking about re-existence and re-entry.
Correct. The changes the doers have undergone, while they have passed through all these rises and falls in the fourth civilization, were changes in feelings and desires. Basically, he says everything is happening because of feeling and desire.
Correct.
The cultural phenomena in the different ages were expressive of these changes.
Mm.
Cultural phenomena in the different ages were expressive of these changes. The doers thought outwardly, and the changes were outward. Even the highest civilizations were outward. They developed to satisfy sensuous perceptions. They were nature civilizations. The human beings had, after all, little more than glorified bodies and trained senses. So in those ages. At no time during these civilizations could people, except those who attained freedom, use more than the body mind with the feeling mind and desire mind as aids. So they used more than body mind, feeling mind, and desire mind as their helpers.
No, they were
For
using
it,
the body mind and supported by the feeling mind and desire.
I see. Use more than the body mind. Okay. For it is necessary to feel and to desire something beyond the four senses in order to call upon more than the body mind. The body mind works for nature only. So basically, they're using more than the body mind.
No. See, they have that support, but predominantly they have been using body mind.
See, for it is necessary to feel and to desire something beyond the four senses in
Correct.
order to call up more than the body mind. Okay. The
See,
body mind works.
why are they supported that way? It is necessary to feel and to desire something beyond the four senses in order to call upon more than the body mind. Otherwise, it is the so you need to be beyond, the control of the desire and feeling.
Senses. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
the body mind. The doers are old in experience, very old, but young in learning, and infants in knowledge. So they're saying, they're old in experience, but they're very young in the knowledge. Rightness and reason have been disregarded by feelings and desires. What the doers felt and desired was considered right, and the thinking served in building up the ages accordingly. So basically, they went through their desires,
Feeling if whatever they felt and whatever they desired, which is remained under the control of survival.
correct, survival mode, body mind mode. Often, doers had reminiscences of their origin, their happy state, and of the innate ideas of truth, justice, immorality, and happiness, which had been once with them. And very little they retained only some.
Correct.
They desired them again, and they worked towards that which they felt. What they felt, they worked only for it. So they built that desire out of it. So they built that desire out into a civilization, thinking that this would bring them back their happy state. So basically, he's saying they worked only for the desired purpose.
Correct.
Their desires reached out to lofty ideals, but as they sought for them outwardly, they failed to realize them and soon lapsed. The desires of the doers have changed many times from grosser to finer objects, which were sought as means of satisfaction. The thinking of feeling in mind and the desire mind, dominated by the body mind, has not changed much. These three minds were and are servitors of the senses. So basically, they were like us in this age. Though their thinking was often brilliant in accomplishments, there was still no great change in what the doer learned. Outward things it mastered, but it learned little thereby because its activities were turned outwardly to nature and not to itself as being part of its triune self and under the light of intelligence. Same way in what we are going through, what we are through, similar same thing. Even though
Exactly.
there are so Yeah, so many inventions, AI, doing so much, but still people are not happy. Often, doers had reminiscences of the presence of the light in which they once had stood, and often when they remembered the warning of the light, they were afraid and worshipped the nature gods all the more in their religion. But often the reminiscences aided some doers to turn inward and to look for the light there. This is what happening when people are not
This is
satisfied.
meditation. This is one way meditation or introspection and all that.
Some advanced, but most fell back into the arms of nature, which was always reaching for the light they had. So some doers went ahead and then fell back from time to time. The majority, however, were in nature and were afraid to think of leaving it. So strong was the domination of the religions or of worldly objects. How small the result of all the changes has been in this vast period can be seen from the state in which the run of human beings are today. Human nature has changed little in millions of years because those who continue to re-exist are the ones who have learned little. The background of all that the human beings have done was their noetic what is it? The background of all that the human beings have done was their noetic destiny.
So it
Each
is
time a
based
doer,
on the noetic destiny. Okay. Yeah.
so each time a doer lived in a flesh body, it drew upon the light in its noetic atmosphere. It drew by its thinking and subsequent actions which were caused by feelings and desires for outward things. The force beat in on the door, evoked feelings, and that aroused desire, which started thinking, and this furnished the means of outward satisfaction. The light of intelligence showed the way and went out with the thoughts and acts into the nature. So it got wasted. It went into though much light was redeemed automatically, not enough was saved or redeemed to bring about a change sufficient to cause the doers in human beings to improve their desires. The story of feeling and desire is strange. The story shows that the world is governed by law, but that man allows himself to be governed by feelings and desire under the direction of the senses, and which are opposed to law. Feeling and desire governed insofar as past destiny will permit. When the doer first took up its abode in the physical body, feeling and desire were stainless and without fear, free without worry or trouble. They were innocent without a taint of evil. The doer enjoyed everything without questioning under the light of the intelligence. It seemed to know everything, it seemed to know everything, though it had no knowledge of its own. The light of intelligence revealed everything to it. The light was in the feeling and desire, and everything desire wanted, it had. Everything that was good for desire was made apparent to it by the light. Feeling and desire were not blind to the light as they now are, and they were not afraid of it. So, because the few thoughts were pure.
Correct.
But as soon as the light was shut out from the psychic atmosphere, when the doer had disregarded the warning of the light, the doer left that interior and happy state and journeyed towards the outer crust of the earth.
Correct. Very true.
Outer crust of the earth in the senses, through the senses.
No. He journeyed towards the outer crust means he became more physical.
More physical. Yeah. More than inward or outward. Yeah.
Correct.
There, everything was different. The doers no longer had revealed to them the knowledge which the light had given. Slow reasoning took the place of direct revelation. The happy state was replaced by unhappiness, freedom by coercion, and stainlessness by lust. Worry, disease, oppression, want, and death were the lot of those outside who were governed by their four senses.
See, basically, when you are in the psychic atmosphere, you are highly emotional,
Yeah,
right? That means you are in a wave. You have peaks and troughs. We have peaks and troughs. So we get influenced by that.
correct. They were governed by the senses.
Correct.
Pleasure and gratification of the appetites came to give relief to feeling and desire. But there never is enough to satisfy them. Feeling and desire cannot be satisfied by anything on earth. They are a portion of the doer which was satisfied in its original state. Of that condition, desire is vaguely aware and wants it again, and therefore is turbulent in its search for satisfaction. So of that condition means this search for what is this? Search for satisfaction. Oh, the turbulent condition. The
No,
doer,
the search for satisfaction. The satisfactory state, the original state.
okay.
I mean, where everything is balanced.
Correct. Correct.
Because that's what we read from T&D to start with in the initial chapters.
Yeah.
So of that condition, desire is vaguely aware and want it again, and therefore is turbulent in its search for satisfaction. The doer seeks this in outward things and reaches outward into nature. It has been doing this ever since the light of intelligence was withdrawn from it after the desire fell under the spell of the sexes. The spell of the sexes is over all of human life. The power of the spell is exercised by nature. The thoughts of the doers have given to nature the sexes, which are now its keynote. Since it has been keyed to the
Here,
sexes,
just one
by them on words
Yeah,
for the
yes,
light
sir.
it
point that we could think about is that, see, in nature, there are some, lakhs of species are there. I think most of them are governed by a particular period of sexual excitement and particular period for cohabitation, except the human beings. Am I right?
Yes.
Because their period of consummation is, limited to a particular part of the year or a season,
season.
whereas humans have no season, no sense, no timing. The desire overwhelms the everything else, basically. And what we call advanced culture probably is more and more intimacy without any legal restrictions.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a role. It has become more and more physical in nature.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there is no meaning in it, nothing beyond physical in nature.
Correct.
Yeah. Since it has been keyed to the sexes, nature pulls by them on the doers for the light it needs. The feeling and the desire of the doer have gone out into nature, and the doers are under the spell of their own feelings and desires, which nature works against them. Nature is not to be blamed, for the doers have made it what it is. Yeah. That the doers lose the light which is loaned to them is their noetic destiny. Nature was lowered, unbalanced by feeling and desire through the sexes, and must be redeemed, balanced by feeling and desire. This too is the noetic destiny of the doer. Some doers do this in a vague manner. They feel they are guilty of something, though they do not know of what. This feeling gets a vague fear, which is sometimes presented in poetic form as dread of the anger of the gods or the wrath of God. The power of the spell, however, has usually been greater than the fear. The fear has been a companion of feeling and desire since the doers came to the outer earth. They have been afraid of the light ever since they did not heed its warning. The vague apprehension that misfortune would fall on them was but a form of that fear. Okay, let's go.
Seeing and fearing are two aspects of desire. Seeking and
Seeking, seeking and fearing are the two aspects of desire. The doers have built and destroyed the civilizations of the past, which all grew up as expressions of their feelings and desire. Even the highest civilizations of people of a fire age were outward developments. The inner nature of the people were little developed. This is why the doers will continue to re-exist. Fear and desire to get satisfaction drive them. Their thoughts and acts are in response to these impulses. Another aspect of the desire is rebellion against the light, which takes the form of rebellion against existing things. The rebellion arises from the fact that desire is not satisfied. It never can be satisfied by anything outside. It opposes all existing order. It is ungoverned. It cannot do without the light of intelligence, yet it rebels against it. It rebels against control. It wants to get back to the original state of happiness and cannot do it without the light. It is no wonder that feeling and desire are restless. It is their sensual feeling and desires compelled by the body mind that have controlled the doers, their beliefs, their thoughts, and their actions for all of these years since the doers came to the outer earth. Every embodied doer has had all the experiences it needs, more experience than is represented by all the experiences which the present age offers, all experiences possible. What the doer lacks is the learning they should have from the experiences they have had. The turmoil will go on until the doer distinguishes itself as feeling and as a desire and realizes that the satisfaction it seeks it can never get outside itself. That desire must desire to be under the rule of rightness and reason and to be guided by the conscious light within.
Correct.
This turmoil goes.
That wisdom is the one that will help him feel that he needs to take that action or not.
Correct.
Yeah.
Once you are happy inside, then automatically you are happy outside.
Correct.
That wisdom comes, then change occurs. In order to understand the purpose of re-existence.
One second, Ramakrishna sir is saying something.
So this is where I think Patri sir's jnanam and then dhyanam. So unless you know jnanam or the right value and the right duty at a particular situation, again, desakala paristhiti. So all this knowledge is necessary before your conscious awakens.
Correct. No, it starts with data. You assimilate the data, convert it to information. That information you will then convert it to knowledge. That knowledge will then become wisdom when you experience it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, sure.
Jnanam and then dhyanam. Certainly remembered that.
Yeah. In order to understand.
In order to understand the purposes of re-existences and the length of time they must continue, it is necessary to keep in mind the origins of the triune selves as primordial units in the fire sphere and the history of their doers up to their present re-existences. In view of the duty of human beings to desire that they be ruled by the thinkers of their triune selves and by their destiny to be conscious as triune selves, it is well to observe how little they have developed in all ages they have passed on earth, even though some of the civilizations were great beyond fancy. Even though great realizations occurred, but still they did not realize and they fell, and then keep coming back. They keep re-existence.
We will continue in the next week.
Yeah.
We'll stop here. Yeah.
So, this person, I don't know how he wrote so